All right, so I want to welcome you to Ninjaversity and to our weekly WordPress webinars where we talk about everything WordPress and answer your questions directly. If you have a question, please submit them to ninjaversity@web.ninja and we'll answer them in one of our webinars. And I'll keep you posted as to when your question's going to be answered so that you can be sure to chime in or visit or watch the recording if you can't make it to the webinar. As well as I'm trying to do little perks for those of you who participate and ask your questions by doing a little bit of a promo of your business. So I'll just keep saying this each meeting, I think, is that I don't feel like I'm teaching you WordPress. I feel like I'm teaching you how to succeed. And because the less that you have to wrestle with your website and with WordPress, the sooner you can get back to your business and to your clients and helping them solve their problems. And growing your business is what it's all about. Helping people is what it's all about. So welcome to Ninjaversity. Welcome to our weekly WordPress webinar. The person who had the main question this week was Beth Barany. Beth, I have known for, I think it's 11 years now. You can tell me, but Beth is an author coach. She has written and published several books. She can tell us about those. Her website, her main website is writersfunzone.com. And I think of this as her playground, her author's playground. And even though it is for her business, she has made it very fun. She's made it a great place for her people to hang out. And so I think, Beth, why don't we go ahead and turn it over to you? I think you're unmuted. Go ahead and introduce yourself and say whatever you would like and maybe the questions that you had that spurred today's webinar.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, PJ. And I do have to give a shout out to you because you actually put this site up for me, Writers Fun Zone, a while back, some years ago. So my business is about helping fiction writers, and specifically genre fiction writers, people who love to write and want to write novels like mystery or thrillers or romance or science fiction, fantasy, things like that. And I teach them, and I have classes and workshops and online webinars and an online school, in fact, called Barany School of Fiction. So this is my main promotion site, writersfunzone.com/blog. And this is where I offer lots of awesome free content to people who would be interested in writing fiction. And so, yeah, what brought me here is I was noticing that my blog takes up a lot of space in my hosting service. And while it will continue to do so, I need to find ways to reduce some of that space and just manage that, because I need to ensure that this blog runs smoothly, that it's backed up properly. That's my biggest concern. And that growing forward, as I continue to grow the blog, I have systems in place that make sure it's being backed up properly, and just in case anything were to ever happen, because it's my main way of reaching the world, in addition to my newsletter. So came to you with help. my hosting service doesn't back me up, and it looks like the blog is the culprit, but I need the blog. So what do I do? So we're working out some solutions, and you gave me one suggestion, which was to reduce image size, and so I've been starting to do that. I'm sure there's other things that I could be doing, and I'm open to learning how I can make this site properly backed up and all that good stuff.
Yes, because your website is definitely extremely driven by content. You have lots and lots of valuable content. As we look at the dates here, you can see that you're posting almost weekly. And if you're that active of a blogger, then your content is your most important thing. So you want to make sure that that is protected. So I shared some solutions for both how to clear out some of the extra, what I call quote unquote garbage type of storage space, which might have been backups that you didn't really need anymore. They were outdated. as well as what we'll be talking about today, which is the media library. And I'll show some reasons why your storage space on your hosting account can get used up pretty quickly if you're an active blogger. And media is one of the places that I see the most where that usage happens. So, okay, so Writer's Phone Zone, I'm actually just going to start when Beth asked me her question, and media being one of those places where memory can get used up on your hosting account the fastest. Here's the first thing I do when I go start troubleshooting a problem like this. I actually go to the media that's on the website, and if you right click on an image and you open it in a new tab, you can start to see a couple things. I'm going to do a little bit of wizardry first and take us to the original image that was uploaded to WordPress to Writer's Fun Zone. And if you look at this, you can see, okay, it's probably a big file. If you do a little bit of, you hover over the tab, you can see the dimensions, which are 940 by 788. That's not huge as far as dimensions are concerned, but it is probably bigger than what is needed, considering this is mostly a, this is a photo for visual, but not super functional. There's not instructions on how to go to a meeting or where to go to a website. It's really just this question and something to give you a kind of something to look at more than just text. So you don't need a super huge image if this is the purpose of it, is just to be something pretty to look at. And that's kind of what Beth was alluding to a little bit earlier. And again, as you have questions, go ahead and chat them, text them in the chat area, and I'll answer them as we go along. So right now I can see, okay, here's a little bit too big of a photo in general. I will actually go through this process just right off the bat because I don't have to dig into anything like her cPanel or FTP. I don't need to ask for login information, and I could still get quite a bit of useful information by taking this kind of a look initially. And what I did find is that Beth did have a lot of oversized images. Now, one thing that could be tricky about this, we'll also get into, is that an image, if it gives you the dimensions, it doesn't necessarily tell you the size. And the size would be how much memory data it takes on the hosting account. And so I actually had to do a little test myself to see how WordPress handled it, and I'll show you what I found. So let's go ahead and look at how WordPress behaves when you upload a file. Now, first of all, I'm just going to upload. Now, if you go to your dashboard, you'll log in and you'll see your dashboard, and you go over here to media, and you click on that media. This is your media library. Whenever you upload any kind of media, whether that is a JPEG, a GIF, any kind of an image or a photo, videos, PDFs, those are all media files, and they get stored here in your media library. So even if you upload something on a post or a page, it's going to show up here in the library. And this is where you can manage all of the media files that you've uploaded anywhere on your site. You can find them all here, manage them all here, okay? How they display on a page, for instance, you'll probably have to do that on the page, and that's okay. We'll kind of look at that in a little bit as well. So I kind of wanted to look at big picture stuff on this media library because Beth's question really involves a lot of different types of things. So hopefully, whatever your question is, we'll cover or at least touch on it as we go along. So I'm going to add a new image just so you can see when you're in your media library. WordPress now has some Ajax functionality where you can either open the file here by clicking select file, and it takes you to your computer's library, or you can actually open a window explorer. Hopefully you can see my window explorer, and if you can't, please type that in the chat area. you can actually open up your Window Explorer on your computer and drag and drop. So I'm going to drag and drop some ninja hearts here. Ninja love. And you can see here the file is uploaded. And now we can go to edit it. Now, when editing, this is also a semi-new function in WordPress, is that you've got a permalink where whatever you've named the file, it's actually now going to get a permalink. I'm going to open this in a new tab. You can see how this shows on a website is that it actually has like a URL of its own. Different themes handle these in different ways. So if you're curious about this, you might check out your own theme and how it handles these kind of files, okay? And if you look over here, you'll see some details about when it was uploaded. Here's the file URL. Now, file URL and permalink are not the same thing. Permalink is like a page on your site. Again, I'll show you what this looks like. And spoiler alert, well, this is not spoiler alert, this is just true confession. When I started using WordPress, my biggest problem was I wasn't sure what I was looking at. So if I was looking at something on the back end, on the dashboard, I wasn't sure what that meant on the front end as far as like what my users or website visitors were seeing. So I hope that you probably have some of those same problems too, and I hope that we can get rid of that feeling of disorientation of I'm not sure what I'm looking at. So again, this is a permalink, like if somebody was to look at this link right here on your website, this is what it would look like. Okay, just so that you know that it's like a page on your site now. And it's different from a permalink or a file URL, sorry, which you'll find over here. The file URL is the actual link to the file itself, not like it would be viewed on your website, okay? So if we take that URL, we copy and paste it into your browser, this is what it looks like. There's no header like you would see on the theme. There's no page information sidebar like you saw before. There's none of that. It's just the file. So keep that in mind when you're updating these and looking at what these might be, because you get into the HTTP :/ kind of crap, and it starts to get a little bit confusing. That's more like code type of stuff. Okay, so those are the differences there. You can see the file name, file type is a JPEG, a file size. Now this is how much memory it's taking up on your hosting account. Okay. Dimensions are again the width and the height, and those are calculated in PPI, pixels per inch, and that can be a little bit deceptive. So there's a relationship between the file size, how much space it takes up, and the dimensions, but they're not exactly the same thing. So I'm going to show you an example of how they can be different and why you want to be aware of both. Okay, so when we're talking about dimensions, I've got 1024 by 1024. The first dimension is always the lengthwise, horizontal. The second one is always the height, how tall is the image. And again, it's in pixels. And I think I want to get into the little, actually no, we'll go into how WordPress behaves, because WordPress itself, when it's uploaded this file, it actually created a couple of copies of this file. So it's not just 187K that it's taken up on my hosting account. It's actually taking up a bit more, and I'll show you why. If you go to settings over here and media, we can look at a couple of media settings. I actually kind of wish these settings would be in media, but that's neither here nor there. You can see WordPress is actually making a couple of copies of your images for you. So it's making a thumbnail, which thumbnails are always square, and these are the ones that you'll usually see used in a gallery, for instance. So you get a little snippet of an image and it gets you to click for the full-sized image, those are going to be thumbnail. They're fairly small, which is 150 by 150. Medium size, in general, the reason WordPress uses these is because this is, in general, the size that you're going to put into a post or a page. Because again, you don't want an image to take up the full page if the most important content on your site is the words. So we'll go back to Beth's website. The most important content on her site is the words. Her content is all about the message, like blog posts. Now, if you were a photography site, a wedding site, artists, they're going to be more interested in the image themselves. So they're going to want nice, big, flashy photos that will take up maybe the entire screen, because they're going to go for that visual effect. But if you're just looking for, I want an image that adds something nice to my words, well, then you're going to use, say, a medium type of size. A medium type of size that would be, say, 300 by 300. Now, these may vary depending on your installation or your theme. And again, we have large size, which is going to be for photographers, the artists, somebody who's looking for a nice big image to grab people's attention and get them that visual effect. So the other thing, I'm going to show you what that looks like on the back end. This is more advanced stuff, but I want you to see what's happening in the background. So Beth was talking about her cPanel having too much data being stored on her hosting account. It's taking up a lot of room, and she's running out of room to store new images and content. So if you were to look in your cPanel or FTP access, you would navigate to these folders, your WP content and uploads, because that's where your media library is stored. Mine is just in 2017 and 08 because I uploaded those today or yesterday. Now, here's the original file that we uploaded. It's actually love whatever, but Ninja Love. But if you upload a kickbutt.jpg was the original. WordPress actually made all these copies of the file. And it's because WordPress has different ways that it is intended for you to use them, which again is the thumbnails or medium type of images for use on a post or page. But your theme might also have specific ways to use a file, and specifically images. And so it may have specific sizes for a header or use for a poster page or thumbnail specifics that it might have. And so the theme that I'm using, for instance, created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 extra images here for me. I didn't ask for it. I didn't tell it to, but it's trying to anticipate how it's going to interact with me, the creator, as well as your visitors who are going to view it later. So I'll go over here to this. We'll go back to the media file itself. My computer's being a little slow. And you'll see here is the 187 kilobytes that it was using up. And I'll go back here to say that this is the 187 kilobytes, but this one and this one and this one and this one and this one, these have all got new, they're adding kilobytes. So I might be up to 500, 600, 700 kilobytes by now, okay? Because each of these is a new image, not just a dimension of this image, okay? So I've actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 images for every single one image that I upload. That's huge, okay? Because if you're uploading really big files, you're going to run out of space on your hosting account really, really fast. And that's important to be aware of. And so I'm actually going to show you one more super advanced. I don't recommend you actually doing it, but I'm just going to show you in your functions PHP file. Here's where your theme is actually creating some new, you'll see some coding like this in your theme. I don't recommend that you ever edit this or try to change it because you'll probably break it. If you're getting into that level of stuff, or maybe even this level of stuff, you'll probably want my help to take care of it. I and my other ninjas, okay? So I'm gonna actually show you the thing that I was experimenting with. And that was, I created a file that was high resolution. Now, I want to drill home a very important concept. There's a difference between a web-ready photo or file and a high resolution or print-ready file. Because the web, in order to make the web function quickly, smoothly, for things to load fast when you go to a page, you want to see it immediately, what web creators did was make everything low resolution. That means there's not a lot of data per inch of whatever screen that you're looking at. And the difference is if you go to print something, that's a totally different process. And so you actually want as much data as possible without being ridiculous per square inch. And what you'll see that expressed as is DPI or PPI. Something that's web ready is going to be 72 PPI. And I'm sorry I didn't create any visuals for this information. So I hope you're taking notes. If you're doing something that's print, you're going to be looking at 300 to 600, for instance, DPI or PPI. And that just means that there are more pixels per inch, 72 pixels per inch versus 300 pixels per inch. And so a lot of times, I'll take you to one of my favorite websites called Unsplash. This is one of my favorite sites for getting open source images. You've got a bunch of photographers who do fantastic work and they want to get their stuff out there. So they created this website where they don't charge, they just ask you for credit. You don't actually have to give credit, but I like to because I'm very thankful for the great work they've done. So if I was, for instance, going to do a blog post about horses, or maybe, I don't know, this could look, oh, Iceland, right? I could grab this image, but spoiler alert, let's see if I can open it on here. Oh, they don't allow us to do that anymore. Well, this is a huge, huge, huge file, okay? It is actually really gigantic. It is photo ready. This thing is ready for print. So there's probably 300 PPI, or it might be just a gigantic file. I'm going to want to shrink this down so that it is ready for my website, because one, on my website, if I don't make it web ready, it's going to take a long time to load. And I want my visitors to see this photo as soon as possible. The other thing is that it's going to take up a lot of space on my hosting account, and I'm going to run out of room really fast. So again, one of the other options that I gave to Beth is that once she's cleaned up any files that she doesn't need, she's probably still going to need more room. And so it would behoove her to step up her hosting account to the next level of storage space so that she has more space for her content. Now, I encourage you, anybody in a similar situation, because I do have a lot of clients that run into this problem, to clean up your current site and file storage situation first, and then start using really good habits like what I'm trying to share in today's webinar, because that's going to put you in a better situation. It's going to get you the most bang for your buck. You're not going to be paying for something you don't really need. Okay, and I think that that's always the best way to go, because then you can use your business resources for things that really are going to help you grow your business, rather than just create dead weight that you're dragging around. Okay, so if I was to grab this file, I would want to take it and make it web ready, which is gonna be something like Photoshop. For instance, I use Photoshop. You could use Adobe Illustrator. There's lots of image editing software out there, but there are also free resources online. There's lots of them where you could just do a search for resize image online free. Okay, and that'll take you to a page full of places where you can get those done. I like this one just because it's very simple and straightforward. I've found some of the other ones to be very confusing and difficult to use. I've stumbled my way through them, but this one's very, very simple and straightforward. You upload your image, you give it the dimensions you want, and once you get that set, then bam, you've got the image ready to download, okay? And it gives you a nice set of options to choose from without being ridiculously confusing, okay? So you might write down that resizeimage.net. I'm just sharing that because I like it, and even though there's lots of other options out there, I do have clients who just send me a bunch of photos in a Dropbox and I'll resize them for them really quick because they don't want to go through the trouble of doing it themselves. So again, lots of options. Here's something. Here's the experiment that I kept alluding to, is that I actually created a file that is print ready. It's 300 DPI because I wanted to see how that would translate into WordPress specifically. So say I grabbed that big image of the horses and I uploaded it to my media library. Well, here's this hello. This is the one that I made that's print ready. It's 300 DPI. It's only 100 by 100 pixels, okay? But that's pixels per inch, and so the data storage is actually going to be higher. And just looking at the image, you couldn't tell that this would be a large file unless it was, say, 500 or 1,000, maybe some of them go up to 5,000 or more when you're looking at the dimension area. And the only way you would be able to tell that, oh, hey, maybe that's just a really big file and it's too big, is here on the file size. And that's why I wanted to point these out. They're related, but they're not the same. So I would try to, in general, if you are looking to just have a nice image for your content, try to have it be, under 100K. And Beth had asked me specifically, and I was just kind of saying what I know because I hadn't researched deeply as I did for the webinar. She was saying about 650 to 800 as the top dimension. And I would say that in general, depending on how you're going to use it. On her blog, that would be totally fine because she's using them for visual effect to add some effect to her content, just something nice that's visual and pictographic. But again, even if you're doing the 850 by 850, you'd want to make sure that it's web ready. It's the 72 PPI so that it's not too big here. Okay. Now, another place that Beth and I were actually playing around, I'm going to go back to my media library, was on the actual WordPress editor. I want to introduce this to you in the webinar just because it is a place that you can go. I want to share, there is a place where you can put a caption. I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, not quite yet, because I want you to see how that it shows up on the front end. I think that's the most important part, is if you put in a caption, this actually shows on your website. Alternative text, this is more going to be for SEO, for the search engines. Now, if I had done a little SEO search and I found out that there was a lot of searches for Ninja Love, I could put Ninja Love here. This is going to show when people hover over the image. Just for instance, are you out of focus? This is what Beth has here. And her theme may actually be doing that for her. I don't know, some themes do. But if you want something specific to show up there, you can type it. You can type it there. Okay. in the alt text and description. That's actually not going to show up on your site, but if you're working with a lot of people or you want to keep notes for yourself, you can put those in the description. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the image editor. There's a lot of stuff here. I don't want to get into too much, but I do want to show you that there's different things that you can do. For instance, if you want to turn or rotate your image, you can. You can rotate it clockwise or counterclockwise. If you want to flip it horizontally or vertically, you can. And these two arrows are really just a undo or redo last action. So whatever I did last and I want to undo it, I can undo it. That's always nice to have, because if you have those oh crap moments and you're like, I didn't mean to do that, you can do that right here. Another fun thing, which does take just a little bit of practice, I've found, is that you can actually crop the image and by dragging to whatever dimensions, wherever you want to focus, you can actually crop the image. Okay, so now WordPress thinks it's just this. I'm going to undo that because I don't actually want to keep that. Now, a question Beth and I had during our conversation was, what does that do if I were to crop it like this and then save it? If I clicked the update, what would happen on that back end area where I showed you the 6 extra copies? Well, guess what, Beth? It's going to create a 7th copy. Every time you go and you crop this image, it's actually going to add a new image. So if you're looking to find the best practices for minimizing the space used up by your WordPress installation and your theme, it's not going to be by cropping images or resizing them, because again, I'm going to kind of just reset us. If you were to scale down your image, say if I wanted to create an image that was 500 by 500 and scale it, again, that wouldn't minimize that list of images. That would add another image. So it's actually just going to keep taking up more space on your hosting file. So as far as the hosting issue and taking up space on your hosting account, you're really going to want to dive into the tougher stuff that I had mentioned, which is going to be getting in through your cPanel, your FTP, and deleting images that aren't going to be used. Making sure that you only upload files after they've been made web ready, and that was through the resize image, or using a software like Photoshop. And definitely looking at the settings in your media settings here, because if you want to minimize or just turn these off, you can actually set them to 0. Okay. I wouldn't get rid of the thumbnail just because that's not going to take up much space anyway, and it tends to be universally used. Now, before you do all this stuff, you want to take a look at what is your theme doing as far as creating its thumbnail. What dimensions are its thumbnail? Now, this is going to be the level where you're working with me directly, and I would be figuring that out for you, because we never want to delete whatever these thumbnails are, because then they'll show up and, sorry, Beth, I hate to do this, but you'll end up with something like this where there's no image. Okay, and you don't want that as much as you can avoid it. You always want to have something that's going to grab people's attention and say, hey, look at me, I'm a lion, read about me. Okay, and so if you just make sure that you never delete any images or image sizes that are being used by your website, then you're going to be just fine. And then if we work together on the functions file to turn off that automatic creation of files you don't need, because again, here you can take care of these yourself. But then if your theme is creating more images and sizes, then we want to turn those off too if they're not going to be used. Okay. So hopefully you've got a good list. I've just had mine mentally, which is first you want to make sure your image is web ready, which means it is 72 PPI or DPI, that the dimensions are not too big. For instance, Beth, your website could get away with say 800, probably get away with 600, honestly. You want to have a little bit of playroom, but for instance, if the photo was functional where you needed people to see, here's some vital information, and I want you to be able to see the full image, then we can actually play around with some other types of things, which let's go ahead and act like we're creating a post. I just wanted you to see a little bit of how media gets added to your library when you're interacting with the normal part of your site, which is going to tend to be if you're creating a post or a page. So here, adding a little bit of text. Now, if I want to add a photo to this post, I go to the add media. Now I could add this one. Why don't we just go ahead and add the, well, let's add a new one. Oh, actually, I'm really glad this showed up here. Now, this is the name of the new image that was created when we resized it. And so, Beth, you specifically, because we had talked about it, this is the new image. It's going to pop up in that list of images that I showed at the beginning. So every time you resize or you crop, it's going to show up with a new image name like this. Okay. So I'm actually just going to upload a new one. We'll do the Ninja Scholar. And when you're dealing with your media library this way, you've got a few different options. And these options are all about how it shows up on the page or the post. Okay, this is more of the basic stuff, but you'll see a few of the things that we saw before. So for instance, your caption, I would like for you to see how that shows up on the front end when you add a caption. And I'll show you how that shows up on the front end. And then description. Now, honestly, description can show up in your meta. So again, that's more advanced stuff. But if you want certain things to show up in meta and if your theme supports it, then you can actually work with your description. So alignment is where do I want the image to show up in relation? Now, this is basic stuff, so please don't get bored if you're a more advanced user. But where is the image going to show up in relationship to my text? Is it going to float on the left and the text will float on the right of the image? Or I could have it centered where there's no text on the left or right, but the image is centered on the page of the text area. I could have the image float to the right, and I'll kind of show you I'll show you these a little bit. I could have it float on the right, where the image is on the right and the text is floating to the left of the image. Or I could have none at all, where it just sits on the left and any text is going to start on a new line, but there's no centering if you do alignment none. Okay, so media file, the image can actually be linked so that, oops, sorry, I'm going to add this info in really quick. Okay, I'm going to have it center on the line to the left. The media file is what do you want to happen when somebody clicks on the image. Media file is specific to the file you just uploaded. So namely, it's this little Ninja Scholar here, our Ninjaversity guy. But you could have nothing happen when somebody clicks on the image. I like this one a lot of the time, honestly. I don't want anything to happen. I just want the image to sit there and look pretty. If you want to be functional with it, You could have it go to the attachment page, which would be, let me show you that again, just because I want you to have that frame of reference. Sorry, let's click. The attachment page is, again, this one where it shows up on the front end of your website. Sorry, I need to move this because it keeps getting in the way. This is actually on your website. People could go to your site and see this if you directed them here. And so it's important for you to know that this is there again. And so if you're adding this media to your page and you want people to go to the page I just showed you, then you would choose attachment page. And finally, you could send them anywhere on the internet that you want them to go. You could actually create a page that's for an event, and if they clicked on the image, it would actually take them to the event page. It could be on your website, it could be on a Facebook event page that you may have created. It could be on if you are doing a shared event with somebody else, or maybe you're even just promoting their event. You could send them to that other website. So if you're doing custom URL, you can send people anywhere you want them to go if they click on the image, okay? And so the ones that I actually use the most are either none or custom URL, because if I want something to happen specifically, it's usually very specific. Now here's where we get to choose the size of the image and how big it is when people are viewing it. If it's going to float in the text like this, like Beth has on hers, you're going to tend to choose the medium image option. So here I would just choose medium because the most important thing is actually the text. The photo is just adding something nice visual to my post. Okay, so I'm going to insert it into the post. Oh, one quick thing here is that you should know you can get into the image editor right here. Perhaps you upload an image and you want to crop it, rotate it, flip it, give it different dimensions or even aspect ratios to make it look warped. You can actually do that right here when you're creating a poster page. But we're going to insert into the post. You can see I had it floated to the left. So we've got the image on the left and the text is showing up on the right. But if we click on the image here in our editor, we can choose a center. So the image is centered on the page, even though the text is not. Or we could float it to the right. So now the image is on the right, text is on the left. Or we could do no alignment. There's no text over here. It's not centered. It's just sitting on the page. And then the text starts on a new line. Okay. And you can see here's how the caption shows up. And if I do a preview of this post, you can see here's how the caption shows up. If I hover, well, normally it'll say the alt text that I had put, probably just a little hiccup. And that's what pops up when you hover over an image, or perhaps this theme. This is just a base theme that I'm not doing specifically. So maybe it just doesn't do alt text. Okay. So I really just wanted you to see this because, one, for newcomers to WordPress, you can see how to add an image, but you also have these different options available. And if you click on the pencil, you can go back into some of your image options here. You've got advanced options, okay? And then I think that is pretty much it for images, the media library. Ooh, I'm sorry, I misspoke. I have this one come up a lot. It's actually kind of a problem. It's one place where WordPress does not operate very well. I'm not sure why they haven't done a better job of it, because almost all of my clients need this function and they need it to work better than it works in WordPress, and that is PDFs and downloads. A lot of people have a PDF or a download that they want to share with their fans, clients, customers, visitors in general. maybe potential prospects. And so that's also operated through the media library. So I created a dummy PDF just for our purposes. 10 essential elements that every website needs to succeed. Coming soon, but here is what it would look like if you uploaded a PDF. It's actually just showing you an icon. This is not the PDF itself. It's showing you just a little bit of information about it. This is how much data storage it's taking up. Some PDFs are going to be big or small. This is another good reminder because, for instance, if you want to do a PDF that is downloadable, you want it to be web optimized, web ready. And that's not going to be the same as if you want that PDF to be printable. Because if you want a printable PDF, it's going to be a huge file, most likely, depending on how many pages. And it's going to take a long time to download. It's also going to take up a lot of space on your website. And so those things are all good to remember. Here is the URL to that PDF. Let's see if I can click and drag it so you can see the whole thing. Okay. Now you can add a caption, but I mostly want you to see how this looks on the front end. So I'm going to insert this post. Here's what it looks like once you've uploaded it. Here's the text version, so you can see the HTML version. You'll see the link here and the name of it here. And I'll do a quick preview. Here's what it looks like on your site. Now, here's where it becomes a little bit problematic is one, you usually want people to be able to download this thing in a new tab. And so you have to go in and edit. Excuse me. You have to edit the settings here, which would be to open the link in a new tab. Because once people go to download your PDF, review it, read it, whatever, you'd want them to stay on your website. So go ahead and make sure you add this function to it and update. The other place that it's a problem is that usually when you have something as important as a PDF, you want it to be eye-catching, you want it to be attention-getting, and you want people to click on it. But if it doesn't catch their attention, you're less likely to get clicks. And let's face it, this is not attention-getting, okay? This is very boring. So we usually have to go to extreme lengths to make this link right here attention-getting, which is to add it to a button. That's going to depend on your theme or your ability to do HTML or CSS coding. But something you can do, I'm going to show you just a little trick. I know that we're hitting our hour, so I'm going to move really quick. And again, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat area. What you can actually do, if you go to edit this thing, you see how this is highlighted. This is the link to the PDF. You can either do Control-C on a PC or right-click and copy. And I'll just show you the little trick that I'm doing. And this is, I'm only showing you this so that you don't have to, you have a really good way of getting an attention, getting a clickable something that doesn't require coding a button. Although I will be showing you a Visual Composer is a plugin that does a really great job of making it really easy for you to create buttons and a whole bunch of other things that are super user-friendly and make your site look gorgeous. But I digress. I'm going to add this photo back in. I'll actually add the Ninja Love. I don't want this. I might actually just put click the heart to download PDF. Okay.
Hey, Peter.
Yeah.
Just wanted to jump in here. I do need to leave soon, but also I've been posting lots of questions in the chat. So I know it's hard to read when you're sharing the screen. So I think you can toggle to see the chat with your view, with your There's a little bar on your
Yep.
screen. You should
There
be
you've
able to see
been
that.
very active.
Yes.
Yeah, it didn't give any notifications. I do
No.
apologize for that. The other form I was using had a nice little notification. Uh, and I actually had the chat window open, but it kept getting in the way. So,
Yeah, that's one of the challenges of Zoom. But
so I think I
there you go.
answered your first one. What's more important, file size or dimensions? Again, so I answered that one, but again, specifically, you're going to want to keep it around or under 100K if you can. And as far as the dimensions, 800 for your site specifically. So Unsplash, we love Unsplash, yay. Let's see, I'm also using them to share into Pinterest, Facebook, and Twitter. Alt text is useful for blind readers, I've been told, okay, by my blind student. Do we want to keep all those copies WordPress makes? And do you want to keep all the copies? That just depends on if you're going to use them. Anything that's not used, I highly recommend turning off. And so you might have to do a little bit of gumshoeing to see what is my theme using, what is WordPress using, how am I using it, and see what's going to be too much. Because I have found there's pretty much any way to make your image show up the right way, and browsers these days do a really good job of resizing larger images. Okay, so if you're keeping it around like 800 as your biggest dimension, you're not going to run into granulation of your image if it has to be displayed on, say, a phone or a mobile tablet. Okay, and so these days you're really going to be fine keeping just the original size and maybe a couple of the snippets. Say, we go back here. Your thumbnails on your theme, these are a very specific size, so you would never want to get rid of these ones, for instance. Okay.
Okay.
Let's go back to chat.
Thank you. I do have a clarification about the shareableness of images. I do intend these images to be shared, like I said, into Pinterest, Facebook, and Twitter. So they do need to link back to the article, and sometimes they do have complete content on them, more like a little advertising. So is that a size consideration? Or will your specifications of 800 pixels, under 100 KB, web ready, that should all be fine for that purpose, right?
Yeah, it'll be fine for those ones because those sites are not, they are tending to use smaller types of images. Now, if people are going to click on something and see it in the 800 type of a dimension, that's still going to be enough, because if you're planning ahead, you're going to lay your information out so that people can see it at that size anyway. If you need to cram a whole bunch of information into something, an image is not going to be the best way to display that. If you couldn't fit it onto those dimensions and size, then an image isn't going to be the best. And what I was showing you is actually one of the ways that you can jury rig a file so that you can actually grab the original, show people something else, and when they click it, then they get what you wanted them to see. So I'll get back to that in a second. I just want to address your questions before you have to go. The way to see if an image is web ready is going to be is in your image editing software, or if you can get into your Windows, whatever your file viewer is, Windows Explorer for PC, and I forget what it is for Mac. But usually you can either right click, or in my case, I prefer to just hover. It'll pop up, and I don't know if you can see my Windows Explorer, I do apologize. But if you can't, if you hover over the file, a little window will pop up, or you can right click and click on the properties of that file, and it will show you the dimensions, it'll show you the size, and from there you can start getting that view of, okay, this is way too big. And if it is, then you go ahead and start editing it down to be web ready.
Okay, but it doesn't say what the DPI is. But you're saying like resizeimage.net would show me the DPI?
It's going to show you, this is why I keep trying to point out that the relationship between dimensions and size. Because again, you're going to look at both, they're related, but they're not the same. So for instance, you'll see the dimensions here are 100 by 100. The size is 13K. That's going to be fine for putting on a website. It's going to be small, but it'll be fine if it suits the purposes. This one is 1024 by 1024. I don't need it to be that big. 186K doesn't need to be that big either. So I'm going to take that and make it web ready.
I'm sorry, I can't see your screen. I just see, well, all I see right now is Writer's Fun Zone. So are you showing something else?
Well, let me go
there we go.
to the media library specifically then. This one, 804 by 1129, that's huge. Don't need that. For if you're using it for something like your website, don't need that. So I can see 804 by 1129. That's enough for me to say, okay, I need to shrink that down to 1129 would be 800 at the most, for instance. And the 315K, that gives me a pretty good indication that this is a print file. So I would want to get that down to 100K as a for instance. And if we go to this file, I've already messed around with this one, but it was 1024 by 1024. It was over 100K. So again, both of those things are telling me I need to shrink this thing. That's what I've been giving both the file size of 100K as a guideline and the dimensions of 800 as a guideline. Because as soon as you see something on your computer that's bigger than that and you don't need it to be, then you'll want to edit it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm trying to get back to the chat. Zoom is just a little bit slow for bringing up the chat. Okay. I think last question was maybe you can make an update on the WordPress code since it's open source. You can, but
that was in reference to your issue around the PDF and all of that. I was just suggesting you or someone like you could help WordPress improve in this area.
Yeah, trust me, the forums are full of asking for that. It's a tight-knit community of people who are allowed on the inner sanctum of actually getting that stuff. So someone like me, even like me, I would be joining the forums and saying, yes, please do this. But since people are already super vocal about that stuff, I feel like, well, they're going to get to it when they do. And in the meantime, I'll figure out a solution around it for people like you who are not going to be super in-depth, like coding HTML, CSS, that kind of stuff. So kind of getting back to your question that you asked over your mic of how can we get around something like what people click on versus what's on my site. I had already grabbed I had copied the URL for the PDF, and now I'm going to add this image to my site. I put a little caption in there so you can see what that shows up like. And when I do I'm going to do a center aligned. When I do the link to, I can actually link it to the custom URL, and I'm going to paste the URL for the PDF. Okay, so when people click on this image on this precise page, not just anywhere it shows up on the site, because I might use this again somewhere else, but just on this page, when they click on this image, it's going to take them to the PDF. So I'm going to insert that into the post. You'll see how that shows up. And I'll just tell you the disappointing that you see how the text here is not centered with the image. That's just another place where I wish that WordPress did better. I'll have to go in and do the coding. I'm actually going to edit this one more time because I want this image to open in a new tab, and this option was not available when I added the image. Okay, so I want it to open in a new tab, update. I'm going to preview it so that you can see here I have this image of the Ninja. I have the instructions, click the heart to download. And when people click on it, they're going to get my PDF in a new tab. And so, Beth, to answer your question, if you want people to be able to share an image, but then be able to get like a bigger size something or other, you can actually upload the bigger something or other. And I know that your question is just a little bit more specific. You can have them, you can upload the bigger file and then have people click on the smaller something else. So the reason I'm sharing this is because you can actually go do a search for buttons online that are graphic buttons, and you can upload the image of that, like click here button, and you can download it, upload it to your site like this. Instead of the Heart Ninja, you would have a click here button, and then it would take them to the PDF. So that's actually a quick and easy and still looks really great way to take people to a PDF download on your site without having to know any coding. I feel giving myself a little pat on the back for coming up with that workaround. But if you use some ingenuity, you can usually use WordPress a lot of different ways to accomplish your goals. So I am going to end this here and just open this again to any questions that you might have. I'm going to open the chat, and I'm also going to unmute everyone. And if you have any, actually, I'm going to, if you want to ask, sorry, had an echo. If you want to ask your questions, go ahead and unmute yourself, or you can type up in the chat.
Peter, I just want to thank you so much. I love how you go into such detail and really show what's going on. I really appreciate being able to see all the steps you took to check the images, and it's just super helpful for someone who, I think I'm good at following written instructions, but it just makes all the difference in the world to see you actually do it. So thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thanks for the feedback. WordPress really is a learning curve. And again, I totally feel the pain of anyone who feels disoriented or unsure of what they're looking at. Because again, when I first started working with WordPress, I was super confused. I was super disoriented. And I can say now that it's really not that hard, but that's just because I've gone through the steps of touring my way through all of this stuff. So I want to share these things with you so that you feel comfortable, you feel familiar. Part of the time you're going to be able to do stuff yourself, but I think it's also helpful for you to understand why, if you need my help and my team's help, why you need it. You know, it's because like you do have to dig around the coding sometimes. You do have to change some deep, dark parts of the website that you don't want to touch, because a space or a period or something else in the wrong place could literally break everything. And so when you have that frame of reference, I think it's also helpful for you. So thanks for that feedback. Any other questions? I do have to bring this chat window up every time, which is interesting.
Don't worry, while you share your screen, we cannot see your chat. We can only see what you've shared.
Okay, good. That's why I've been reading the questions out loud just in case. But thank you. It's always good to know what you can or can't see. That's why I like it when I was in my Windows Explorer. I was saying, if you can't see that, let me know, and I'm glad you did. Because, again, this is a learning curve for me.
Yes, there is a time delay when you switch. on your side for us to see it. And then also each of us can click on a chat icon to see the chat. So you don't have to worry about that. We can control that for ourselves.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Beth, you had a lot of great ones. And your questions are the ones that spurred this webinar topic in the first place. But you know, when you touch on one topic that might seem like a little thing, it might actually be a gigantic Pandora's box, and that's why I want to open the Pandora's box and show you how not scary it is. So any other questions, problems people may have run into when they're adding files or photos? Because again, you can add videos, photos, PDFs, and that's all going to show here in your media library. You have some options for editing some of those. It can create problems for you depending on what's going on in the back end. And we've covered pretty much as many of those solutions as I can think of, but there's always something new. So please ask your questions. Since I've got nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and just thank Beth for stepping up and asking her great questions. I hope we've been able to help you answer those. I want to thank you for joining us for Ninjaversity, for the free WordPress webinars. The way that I'm gonna be able to keep bringing these to you is if more people and more people join. We can keep generating the great content, answering your questions. So please share the love with your friends wherever you and they like to hang out. Please send them to ninjaversity.com. They can sign up, they can ask their questions, and we can all hang out and spread the love and the awesomeness. So thank you so much for being here. I hope to see you next time. And I'll be following up this meeting with a link to today's recording. Hope you have an awesome week and wish you all the best.